Good. Good morning and welcome. My name is John Donadio. I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Association of Counties. And I first just want to thank you, Governor Murphy, for giving me a few minutes to say some words today. I appreciate it a great deal. And on behalf of the 12 counties that we're going to talk about today, many of which are here today, I just want to thank you, Governor Murphy, for your leadership during this public health crisis over the past several months, and also for recognizing the vital role that county governments have played in protecting the public health, safety, and welfare of residents across the Garden State. I also want to take a minute to thank Mike Delamater from your staff. I know he's over there. He's been an outstanding resource for county governments over the past several past several months. He's been responsive. He's just been, again, a terrific resource. And I think most significantly, we're going to give him a special award for having to deal with the most unmuted phone callers during our daily briefing calls with all the counties. So thank you, Mike. We appreciate your leadership and your support a great deal. And then lastly, and I say this very mindful of what we've struggled through for the past several months as a state and what we continue to sacrifice. I am very proud to stand here today as part of county government, as our county leaders have risen to this terrible occasion. And I can tell you, whether it's our elected officials, and many of them are here today, certainly our county administrators and our county professionals, our constitutional officers, I've had the privilege to watch them work day in and day out tirelessly to deliver essential services to, again, residents across the Garden State. And it's something that I certainly won't forget and appreciate. So again, Governor, thank you again for giving me a couple of minutes today, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say. So thank you.
Thank you, John. I'll give you a shout out there. Good morning, everyone. As they say, this is a day the Lord made. Man, what a day. I'm told the weather is always like this up here in Morris County, John. So, thank you all for coming out today. John, thanks to you and your colleagues at NJAC for all of the partnership and work and teamwork alongside the rest of us during this response to COVID-19. And I'm personally, I want to say grateful for your leadership at the New Jersey Association of Counties. Before I acknowledge a few other folks, I'm going to go completely off script just to give you a couple of unrelated updates. So on the COVID front, just real quick, 302 new positive cases, 8 fatalities, 433 people in total in hospitals, 79 of them are intensive care, 28 ventilators are in use. There were 21 new hospitalizations, but happily 39 discharges. The spot positivity rate's up a little bit, 2.21%, but still among the best in the nation. There are no new cases of the child inflammatory syndrome, thank God, and the rate of transmission is staying where it's been the past few days, just a hair above 1 at 1.06. On a related front, this is not only a public health crisis, but an economic crisis. Every Thursday, the federal government and we, as each of the 50 states, come up with our unemployment updates. So 25,405 new filings in our state. That brings our total over the past 4 months to an unfathomable 1.5 million folks who have filed. Between state money and federal money, $14.1 billion have gone to those 1.5 million folks. And 96% of the people who have been deemed monetarily eligible have received at least one payment. So I wanted to make sure you all got those updates. In addition to thanking John, I want to also recognize the guy to my right, Congressman Josh Gottheimer from our 5th Congressional District, not just for being present this morning, but for extraordinary leadership. Redefining the word bulldog literally does not take no for an answer. And that's a good measure as to why we're here today. And I reiterate the thanks that John threw toward my colleague, Mike Delamater. I also would be remiss if I did not recognize the work of other representatives who touch parts of, if not entirety, of the 12 counties that we are discussing today, especially Representatives Bonnie Watson-Coleman, Mikey Sherrill, Tom Malinowski, and Andy Kim, all of whom advocated for this funding along with Josh on behalf of the 12 counties. There are a whole host of elected officials today, but I also want to give a shout to John Bonatti, the county administrator here in Morris County, who's going to speak in a few minutes. I said to John as I walked in, he and I normally only connect on bad weather days, so it's a highly unusual experience to be with him in good weather. I want to give Mount Olive Mayor Rob Greenbaum a shout out. Rob, thank you for your leadership for hosting us. Senator Tony Bucco is with us today. Tony, very good to see you. And to all the other elected officials with a heavy dose, obviously in Morris County, but representatives from some of the other counties as well. As New Jersey continues to weather the COVID-19 pandemic, again, I have to thank elected officials at all levels, from our representatives at the federal level to our state legislators and our county and local leadership for their partnership and commitment to serving the residents of our state during this unprecedented time. There is no denying that COVID-19 has placed an incredible amount of strain on our resources. In prioritizing the health of our residents, counties have taken on an overwhelming amount of unexpected expenses. 12, as I mentioned, of our 21 counties were not eligible to receive federal coronavirus relief funding because their populations are below 500,000. However, together, those 12 counties represent about a third of our total population as a state, about 3 million people. To address this issue, and after working months of together closely with all 12 counties and with our federal delegation, as I mentioned, today I'm announcing that each of these counties is being given funding in 3 separate parts under one memorandum of understanding. So the first portion is a reimbursement of COVID-19 related expenses to date. This money represents the 25% of the cost share, with FEMA paying the balance of the 75%, along with other eligible CRF expenses. This first bucket totals $15.6 million. And I'm happy to report that all 12 counties have already signed their memorandum of agreements, and these funds will be available as soon as they are signed off on by our terrific health commissioner, Judy Persichelli, and our equally terrific superintendent of the state police, Colonel Pat Callahan. So the first bucket, $15.6 million. The second part of the funding will help stand up new or continue operating existing testing sites in each county. And each of these 12 counties will receive $357,500 for this purpose. You take that number, multiply it by 12, that second bucket is $4.3 million. And the third part and final bucket is also related to testing, which we know will continue to be a critical part of our effort to contain COVID-19. Based on population size, each county will receive CDC ELC funds, and that stands for Epidemiology and Laboratory Capacity, and that's grant funding, to support ongoing testing of vulnerable and high-risk populations. This will be received by the county after submitting a testing plan and gaining approval of that plan by the Department of Health. And that is a total of $17 million. Again, $15.6 million in the first bucket, $4.3 in the second, $17 in the third. Collectively, this totals $36.9 million in federal funds. As I've said from day one of this crisis, the health and safety of our residents is our number one priority, and that means making sure our communities have the resources and support that they need, period. As we in New Jersey at all levels of government continue to be active partners in our response to COVID-19, I want to also urge the federal government to do the same. And I know Josh and his colleagues are in there fighting for us every day. Another guy who's not with us today, but I want to give him a shout out, Senator Bob Menendez, has put forward a plan that will ensure that states that have borne the brunt of this virus will have the resources they need to rebuild to where they were before the pandemic hit. And by the way, Senator Menendez has co-sponsored that with Republican Senator Cassidy of the great state of Louisiana. Now is not the time to bury our heads in the sand. If we let up for even a moment, if we do not put our money where our mouth is and offer our communities the support they need to combat this virus, the effects will be manyfold. I've said it dozens of times, we're living in an unprecedented time, but we are now in month 6 of this pandemic, and we must anticipate and be prepared for the ongoing and coming needs of our response, and that requires federal support. New Jersey is no exception. There's no state in America that has enough money on its own to deal with this. We need, all of us, red and blue alike, need the federal government to step up. In the meantime, New Jersey will continue to work together to save as many lives as we can and get through this crisis together. It is now my honor to turn the microphone over to the guy I referred to a few minutes ago. I don't know a better advocate on behalf of this state. He is tireless. He does not take no for an answer. Please help me welcome from the 5th Congressional District, Congressman Josh Gottheimer.
Thank you so much, Governor, and I'll make sure to pass that description along to my wife. I really appreciate you coming to Vassar Park today, which I know is in Morris County, but actually it's got a Hackettstown address, so I'm also claiming it for Warren County. And I want to thank the mayor for having us today, and Administrator Benani, and thank you so much, Senator Bucco, for your leadership, and our freeholders, and all the elected officials. And I also want to say, I know Mikey's district director, Kelly Doucette, is here as well, so thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank Andy's office and Tom's office and the entire delegation for all their work to make sure we get resources back to Jersey to help fight for Jersey, for our families, for our businesses, and for our communities. This is a critical announcement, Governor, and I really want to thank you for your leadership. As we've heard today, just announced, we're going to be receiving $3 million new federal CARES dollars in the counties that I represent, which I'm very grateful for, including more than $1.38 million to Warren County and at least $1.8 million to Sussex County in the 5th Congressional District. That's additional dollars to both Sussex and Warren County to help reimburse the costs they've taken on directly during the coronavirus pandemic for testing, for PPE, and for additional resources for our brave first responders and frontline public service workforce. And to add to somebody who also works around the clock and is a bulldog about it, I just want to thank Mike Delmater and make sure that I get in the fact that this guy takes a call 24/7 from all of us. It's not easy, and George doesn't have it easy, but Mike doesn't have it easy. Also, he's got to deal with the delegation, and we've been on this 24/7, Governor, as you know, and Mike does a phenomenal job because these dollars are going to be going to maintain testing sites to protect our communities. They're going to help, as we pointed out, for PPE. They're additional resources for our brave first responders, and I hope that we're not going into another downturn in terms of cases. The idea of how far we've come, Governor, thanks with your leadership of how far we've come fighting the virus has been incredible. But we all know, as you talk about every single day, and you just went through those numbers, tomorrow, you have no idea what tomorrow can bring. But it's been incredible just how far you've helped bring us. The investment being announced today is thanks to the bipartisan CARES Act package that we were very proud to help pass out of the House in March, to get relief out to families, small businesses, states, and local communities, to our hospitals, and for more testing and vaccine development. Just to put a fine point on this, because there's been plenty of misinformation out there. Every single one of the 79 towns in all 4 counties of the 5th Congressional District that I represent, including Sussex County, Warren County, Passaic County, and Bergen County, have all received significant COVID-19 funding for direct costs to the towns and counties and to families, businesses, nonprofits, first responders, and our hospitals. No one, no town, no county was left out. Today's announcement of new federal CARES dollars through the state to Sussex and Warren counties only adds to that total and will help our communities even more fight this ongoing crisis. My office recently did an analysis of all available data, and here's what we learned. Even before today's news of additional resources, New Jersey's 5th District alone has received $3 billion in total, including an average of $2,900 for every Sussex County resident and $3,200 for every resident of Warren County. Again, that's before the new resources that the governor announced today. And again, I want to thank the governor for those new resources. The dollars I'm talking about includes support for small businesses for PPP loans for each individual county, the direct economic impact payments to residents in each individual county, the federal unemployment support for residents in each individual county, for those out of work, and of course for our hospitals, for nonprofits, educational institutions, and other direct grants to each individual county. For instance, Sioux Falls Health Centers, with a location right near here, received $1.7 million from the CARES Act to support their ongoing work in telehealth and community care, and $39 million from the CARES Act went to the 5th District colleges and technical schools, including Warren County and Sussex County community colleges. You know, since the beginning of the crisis, I've said that all of our counties, towns, and municipal governments needed federal resources to help them through this. And that's something that I've advocated for strongly with the entire congressional delegation, as well as local leaders around Warren and Sussex County. And I want to thank them. I want to thank our 2 senators who've done a remarkable job, and of course, thank the governor. With these millions of new additional dollars we're announcing today, they help ensure that every New Jersey county has the resources they need to continue combating the impacts of the virus on our communities, for both the health crisis and the economic crisis. But as the governor said, there is more to do. We must continue our fight to get resources out to every New Jersey community, especially those towns with eroding budgets due to the virus, to ensure we can pay everyone from our teachers to our first responders. We've been working in the delegation and across the aisle to introduce bipartisan bicameral legislation led by Senator Menendez to create the SMART Fund, a $500 billion investment for all states, counties, and local municipalities, regardless of size, that prioritizes assistance to the areas with the greatest need. And obviously, Jersey has been hit the hardest along with other states if you look at the map. And as negotiations continue for another COVID relief package, which we must get done, and I'm fighting in Congress now to bring both sides back to the table to get these negotiations going. But aside from the critical state and local funding, the next package has to include support to put food on the table, help our families out, help those out of work. It should also include another round of PPP for our small businesses with strong transparency and oversight. We need additional resources for food assistance, for our K-12 schools and our colleges, and a huge investment for more testing. It's vital that we support all of our communities, our businesses of all sizes, our families, our local economies, and ensure our health systems, towns, and first responders have what they need. And again, I just want to thank the governor for his leadership, from all the work that across the aisle, across this state that's made it happen. I know our state senators, our freeholders in the counties here, and the ones that I represent have all played an important role in making sure these dollars got here today. And we've seen over the past few months here in Jersey and throughout our country where we are much stronger when we all come together. This virus doesn't know age or race or religion or gender or political party. It affects all of us. Fighting COVID isn't a Democrat or Republican fight. It's an American fight. It's a battle I'll continue to fight for my constituents, and it's a fight we will win if we work together, because we live in the greatest country in the world, and I know we'll beat this virus, just like the governor knows we will, because our best days will be ahead of us. So please stay healthy and safe. Thank you again, Governor, and may God bless you, and may God continue to bless and watch over the United States of America. Thank you.
Great job, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
You good?
Yeah, I got it. You like the map?
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Josh. One conclusion I've drawn today is we may have to pay Mike Delamater more money. So many accolades. Thank you, Josh. Thanks for your remarks. Thanks for your leadership and partnership. This doesn't happen without you and your colleagues, so thank you. I mentioned John Bonani earlier. He's the administrator here in Morris County, working with a great freeholder board. It's one of the places in our state you can point to and say, you know what, it really works. That's what government that works looks like. And with that, please help me welcome John Bonani.
Still good morning, so good morning. It's an honor to speak here this morning, certainly. It's always an honor to speak in front of the governor. I've been in this business a long time, and there's no doubt that the last 6 months have been the most challenging of at least my career, and I'm sure all of your careers as well. I was fortunate, as the governor said, to work with such an amazing freeholder board. I have freeholder Director Smith and freeholder Shaw, freeholder Mastrangelo, freeholder Crick is here with me this morning. Working as a team, we've implemented many safeguards for the county, and it saddens me to say that they thought of most of them. Quite honestly, they did. We worked together hand in hand, and every time the staff thought they had it done, our freeholder board come up with a better idea, something we missed, and I very much appreciate your input, your diligence, and you're always on top of it, so thank you very much. As time moved on and we saw the pandemic getting a little bit worse, and we saw the financial issues, I really want to take a moment and thank both Senator Bucco, not Assemblyman anymore, Senator Bucco, and Congresswoman Sherrill. I know Kelly's here representing her this morning. They were tremendous advocates. Anthony, I've known you my whole life. You're just like your dad. You care about what needs to be cared about. And Congresswoman Sherrill was new to our district, but I mean, what a phenomenal teammate she was. And I know that we wouldn't be here today if not for the diligence of you two as well. And lastly, Governor, before I do thank you, I also need to thank Mike Delamarter. But I'll tell one quick story if I could. And I think it was probably back towards the end of April. It was a little after midnight on a Saturday night, and I had a call that the entire Atlantic healthcare system was on divert because they had no ventilators left. I don't know if you remember this or not. And so I reached out to Mike, and he took him about 3-4 minutes to call me back. And I know it was after midnight, but I also know that before the sun rose the next morning, there were some ventilators at Atlantic Healthcare. And, you know, I've been in this business long enough to know that there's two types of employees, those with jobs and those with positions, and that man has a job. And if I could borrow one of your sports metaphors, he carries the ball over the goal line for you all the time, and so thank you very much. Lastly, Governor, on behalf of all the 12 counties, I really appreciate you and you're receiving this message of the resources that we need, and you're signing these MOAs. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. John, thank you. Thank you not just for your good words, but for your work for decades on behalf of this county, and it shows. You told that story about the Saturday night, and Mike, man, the machine came so close to tilting and just running out of beds and running out of ventilators in our state. And please God, we never go back to that. It's a good reminder of how bad it got. And sadly, we're seeing this elsewhere in the country, and we pray for them, and we pray for speedy resolution. Are we doing any questions, Dan, or are we? I am, okay. So I want to thank John and Josh, and we'll take a quick question or two if there are any. And if there aren't, I'm happy. Ma'am. Yeah. I mean, they can. Yeah. I couldn't hear all of you because I had a fan over here yelling, but I think I got most of it. So I want to thank him for his support. The short answer is I respect your wanting to vote in person. You will be able to if you choose to do that. You can either vote by mail and send it back through the mail. I was on with, for all the noise around the post office, I had what I thought was a really good, unemotional, apolitical conversation with their chief operating officer yesterday, along with a couple of his senior guys. They actually performed well in the primary. In fact, going back to John's anecdote, the worst moments in our state, forget about the national buzz around the post office, were back in March and April, where they got clobbered with illness and sadly death, and in some cases, a lot of cases, folks who had underlying health concerns who couldn't even come to work. Those days look like they're behind us. Their performance in the primary was actually very good. But if you don't believe that that's that you can trust that it'll get there on time, we're going to have, we've committed, John knows this, in each county to at least 10 secure boxes that you can drop your ballot off in. I'll bet you Morris, if I know Morris, there'll be more than that. You can also show up on election day and hand your ballot in. And failing all that, either not mailing or not dropping or not handing in, you can show up and vote. And we've asked each county. I think it was a fair, and John will probably agree with me, there was a fair amount of angst among county clerks for the primary because we only gave them 30 days notice. That was partly because we're in the height of the pandemic. Now we've put out an 81-day runway, which I think counties generally think is enough time to get up to 50% voting capacity in at least one location per township. Please. Please, hi. I mean, it's complicated. It's complicated. And you've got one memorandum of understanding bringing 12 counties together. Not easy, but listen, we got there. And I give credit to the counties, to the federal representatives. Josh is representing that group today. The good news is we've got there. And again, some of this is reimbursement, and some of this is a good chunk of its perspective. Hey, Matt.
Governor, you said in your one interview today that you spoke to the president about the ballot issue in Patterson. I'm curious what the president's response was to how did he react to your explanation of the ballot issue, and also how often do you talk one-on-one with the president? You mentioned every so often that you have conversations. Overall, how
It's uneven. Depends on it depends on whether or not there's a specific agenda item that either he's got or I've got. In this case, we spoke Saturday, and I would say I was largely in listen-only mode. He was expressing his concern, and as I've said before many times, the Patterson example to me is a positive example. Some guys tried to screw with the system. They got caught. They've been indicted, and you're innocent until proven guilty, but if they're convicted, they'll pay a big price for that. He feels very passionately the way he feels. We believe the facts, particularly based on the primary that we successfully had, second highest turnout ever, that we've got the actual track record. It's not just hoping and wishing that it works well. We actually have the proof that it does. But it's uneven in terms of how often we speak. He called me. It was about vote by mail as a general matter, and he brought Patterson up. One more, sir. And again, I want to appreciate the fan who's weighing in so heavily for you.
How can you assure voters that once that ballot leaves their hands, it's actually going to count? It's going to get scanned or it's going to be inputted one way or the other. So once it leaves their hands, how can you assure them? Is there a way to verify that their vote?
Wait, I mentioned the primary, ma'am, to answer your question. This is actually easier than the primary because in a primary, you mail ballots to registered Democrats on the one hand, registered Republicans on the other hand, but then you've got the issue of unaffiliated, folks who are not in either party, and you want to give them a chance to apply for a ballot in one of the two parties. That you had to send them an application. You don't have to do that in a general election. Everybody gets a ballot, and you can choose to either mail it, drop it, hand it, or do none of that and show up and vote. The fact of the matter is both the track record that we had in the July primary, as well as the overall track record of vote by mail. We've got a long history of it. I've voted by mail. The president has voted by mail. This is something that's a long-standing practice. But just in case, to your question, for the primary, which we're going to do again for the general, is it used to be you have to have the ballots postmarked by Election Day, and it had to be received within 48 hours. In deference to the fact that there's going to be more mail-in, and there's been a lot of stress on the Postal Service, we extended that 48 hours to 7 days. And we're going to stick with that in November. So the chances are overwhelmingly high, and I can have a supremely high degree of confidence that as long as you get a postmark by Election Day, your vote's going to count. I want to thank John and Josh, to our hosts, Mayor, Tony, Senator, thank you, to the freeholders, to the representatives of some of the other counties here today. This is a big day, a long time coming. Again, to your question, it reimburses to some extent, but it's also forward-looking in another big extent. And let's hope we keep getting the federal cash that you're in there fighting for Josh, and we can have more days like this. Thank you all.